hi Beans. Welcome to book club. We are so close to the end of the book. It's crazy. Let's get started. Chapter 35, Lev. Where Lev was between the time he left Sci-Fi and his arrival at the... And then Sci-Fi. The kid that Lev was traveling with. I believe that happened last segment, was they got to Mississippi. Apparently the unwind bit of brain, or whatever that side did have, was trying to get him home to the brain bit, the unwind brain bit's home. Was compelling Sai to go back to his home so he could unbury this suitcase worth of stolen jewelry, because I guess the kid was a klepto and that's why his parents got him unwound. And then he basically brought the suitcase to the unwind's parents and was like, don't unwind me, I'll stop doing this. So basically the unwind brain, it's the front right temporal lobe or something that Sai got, the kid does not know that he's been unwound. So he's basically just this one little bit of brain is floating, existing in Sai, and that kid somehow thinks that, oh, he's still alive too, and doesn't realize that his brain is in someone else's head now. So he was compelling Sai to do this, because I guess, in his unwound brain, he's stuck in, the moments before he got sent to be unwound. And Lev basically was to the parents, you're assholes, tell your child that you won't have him unwound, because it isn't Sai, it's Tyler, the unwound kid, who's basically begging to his parents, here's this jewelry, don't unwind me, I love you, please don't do this to me. And the parents were just standing there, in shock, what the fuck do I say? And Lev was y'all are assholes, tell your child that you won't unwind him. So they did that, and then, Tyler poofed in Sai's head. So Sci-Fi's back at home with his parents, and Lev somehow made it to the graveyard. I hope that made sense, because my brain is everywhere. But that's what happened with Sci-Fi, and he's no longer in the story. There you go. Where Lev was between the time he left Sci-Fi and his arrival at the graveyard is less important than where his thoughts resided. They resided in places colder and darker than the many places he hid. He had survived the month through a string of unpleasant compromises and crimes of convenience. Whatever was necessary to keep himself alive. Lev quickly became street smart and survival-wise. They say it takes complete immersion in a culture to learn its language and its ways. It didn't take him very long. What? Why are you shushing?
Oh, it's on.
Oh.
Not you.
Okay.
I'm not saying you.
Okay, they say it takes complete immersion in a culture to learn its language and its ways. It didn't take him very long to learn the language of the lost. Once he landed in the Safe House network, he quickly made it known that he was not a guy to be trifled with. He didn't tell people he was a tithe. Instead, he told them his parents signed the order to have him unwound after he was arrested for armed robbery. It was funny to him because he had never even touched a gun. It amazed him that the other kids couldn't read the lie in his face. He had always been such a bad liar. But then, when he looked in the mirror, what he saw in his own eyes scared him. By the time he reached the graveyard, most kids knew enough to stay away from him, which is exactly what he wanted. The same night that the Admiral and Connor have their secret conference, Lev's out into the oil-slick dark of the moonless night, keeping his flashlight off. His first night there, he had successfully slipped out to find Connor in order to set him straight about a few things. Since then, the bruise from Connor's punch has faded, and they haven't spoken of it again. He hasn't spoken much to Connor at all, because Lev has other things on his mind. Each night since he's tried to sneak away, but every time he's been caught and sent back. Now that the Admiral's 5 watchdogs have left, though, the kids on sentry duty are getting lax. As Lev sneaks between the jets, he finds that a few of them are even asleep on the job. Stupid of the Admiral to send those other kids away without having anyone to replace them. Oh, Lev, except that is not what happened. Once he's far enough away, he turns on his flashlight and tries to find his destination. It's the destination told to him by a girl he had encountered a few weeks before. She was very much like him. He suspects he'll meet others tonight who are very much like him as well. Aisle 30, Space 12. It's about as far from the Admiral as you can get and still be in the graveyard. The space is occupied by an ancient DC-10, crumbling to pieces in its final resting place. When Lev swings open the hatch and climbs in, he finds two kids inside, both of them who bolt upright at the sight of him and take defensive postures. "My name's Lev," he says. "I was told to come here." He doesn't know these kids, but that's no surprise. He hasn't been in the graveyard long enough to know about many kids here. Oh, I read that wrong. He hasn't been in the graveyard long enough to know that many kids here. One is an Asian girl with pink hair. The other kid has a shaved head and is covered in tattoos. I think it's Mai and... yeah. Mai we met way earlier in the book. The first safe house that Risa and Connor were in. They met Mai, Hayden, and Roland, who is the jerk face, so. "And who told you to come here?" asks the flesh head. "This girl I met in Colorado. Her name is Julianne." Then a third figure comes out from the shadows. It's not a kid, but an adult. Mid-20s, maybe. He's smiling. The guy has greasy red hair and a straggly goatee to match, and a bony face with sunken cheeks. It's Cleaver, the helicopter pilot. "So Julianne sent you," he says. "Cool. How is she?" Lev takes a moment to think about his answer. "She did her job," Lev tells him. Cleaver nods. "Well, it is what it is." The other two kids introduce themselves. The flesh head is Blaine, and the girl is Mai. "What about the beau who flies the helicopter with you?" Lev asks Cleaver. "Is he part of this too?" Mai gives a disgusted laugh. "Roland? Not on your life." "Roland isn't exactly the material for our little group," Cleaver says. "So did you come here to give us the good news about Julianne, or are you here for another reason?" "I'm here because I want to be here." "You say it," says Cleaver, "but we still don't know you're for real." "Tell us about yourself," says Mai. Lev prepares to give them the armed robbery version, but before he opens his mouth, he changes his mind. This moment calls for honesty. This must begin with the truth. So he tells them everything, from the moment he was kidnapped by Connor to his time with Sci-Fi and the weeks after that. When he's done, Cleaver seems very, very pleased. "So you're a tithe. That's great. You don't even know how great that is." "What now?" asks Lev. "Am I in or not?" The others become quiet, serious. He feels some sort of ritual about to begin. "Tell me, Lev," says Cleaver, "how much do you hate the people who were going to unwind you?" "A lot." "Sorry, that's not good enough." Lev closes his eyes, digs down, and thinks about his parents. He thinks about what they planned to do to him and how they made him actually want it. "How much do you hate them?" Cleaver asks again. "Totally and completely," answers Lev. "And how much do you hate the people who would take parts of you and make them parts of themselves?" "Totally and completely." "And how much do you want to make them and everyone else in the world pay?" "Totally and completely." Someone has to pay for the unfairness of it all. Everyone has to pay. He'll make them. "Good," says Cleaver. Lev is amazed by the depth of his own fury, but he's becoming less and less frightened of it. He tells himself that's a good thing. "Maybe he's for real," says Blaine. If Lev makes this commitment, he knows there's no turning back. "One thing I need to know," Lev asks, "because Julianne, she wasn't very clear about it. I want to know what you believe." See, I don't know who Julianne is. That's new information. An interaction we didn't see, so. And I don't remember this from the first read-through, so this will be a nice surprise for me again. "What we believe?" says Mai. She looks at Blaine and Blaine laughs. Cleaver, however, puts his hand up to quiet them. No, it's a good question. A real question. It deserves a real answer. If you're asking if we have a cause, we don't, so get that out of your head. Cleaver gestures broadly, his arms filling the space around him. "Causes are old news. We believe in randomness, earthquakes, tornadoes. We believe in forces of nature. And we are forces of nature. We are havoc. We're chaos. We mess with the world." "And we messed pretty good with the Admiral, didn't we?" says Blaine shyly. Snap! Cleaver throws him a sharp gaze, and Mai actually looks scared. It's almost enough to give Lev second thoughts. How did you mess with the Admiral? It's done, says Mai, her body language both anxious and angry. We messed, and now it's done. We don't talk about things that are done, right? Cleaver gives a nod, and she seems to relax a bit. The point is, says Cleaver, it doesn't matter who or what we mess with, just as long as we mess. The way we see it, the world doesn't move if things don't get shaken up. Am I right? I guess. Well, then. We are the movers and shakers. Cleaver smiles and points a finger at Lev. The question is, are you one too? Do you have what it takes to be one of us? Lev takes a long look at these three. These are the kinds of people his parents would hate. He would join them just out of spite, but that's not enough. Not this time. There must be more, yet he stands there. Lev realizes that there is more. It's invisible, but it's there. Like the deadly charge lurking in a downed power line. Anger, but not just anger. A will to act on it as well. Alright, I'm in. Back at home, Lev always felt part of something larger than himself. Until now, he hadn't realized how much he missed that feeling. Welcome to the family, says Cleaver, and gives him a slap on the back so painful he sees stars. 36. Risa. Risa is the first to notice something's wrong with Connor. Risa is the first to care that something's wrong with Lev. In a moment of selflessness, she finds herself aggravated by it because things are going so well for her now. She finally has a place to be. She wishes this could remain her sanctuary beyond her 18th birthday, because in the outside world she'd never be able to do the things she's doing now. It would be practicing medicine without a license. Fine when you're in survival mode, but not in the civilized world. Perhaps after she turned 18, she could go to college and medical school. But that takes money, connections, and she'd have to face even more competition than in her music classes. She wonders if maybe she could join the military and become an army medic. You don't have to be a beau to be in a medical unit. Whatever her choice ends up being, the important thing is that there could be a choice. For the first time in a long time, she can see a future for herself, with all these good thoughts in her life, and the last thing she wants is something that will shoot it all down. This is what fills Risa's mind as she makes her way to one of the study jets. The Admiral has 3 of his most accessible and well-appointed jets set aside as study spaces, complete with libraries, computers, and the resources to learn anything you want to learn. This is not a school, the Admiral told them shortly after they arrived. There are no teachers, there are no exams. Oddly, it's precisely the lack of expectation that keeps the study jets full most of the time. Risa's duties start shortly after dawn, and it has become her habit to begin her day at one of the study jets, since at that time of the morning she's usually the only one there. She likes it that way, because the things she wants to learn make other kids uncomfortable. It's not the subject matter that bothers them, it's the fact that Risa's the one studying it. Anatomy and medical texts, mostly. Kids assume that's just because she works in the medical jet. She knows all there is to know. It disturbs them to see her actually having to learn it. When she arrives today, however, she discovers Connor already there. She stops at the hatch, surprised. He's so absorbed in whatever he's reading that he doesn't hear her come in. She takes a moment to look at him. She's never seen him so tired, not even when they were on the run. Still, she's thrilled to see him. They have both been so busy there hasn't been much time to spend together. Hi, Connor. Startled, he looks up quickly and slams his book closed. When he realizes who it is, he relaxes. Hi, Risa. By the time she sits down beside him, he's smiling and doesn't seem quite so tired. She's glad she came. Hold on. She's glad she can have that kind of effect on him. You're up early. No, I'm up late, he says. I couldn't sleep, so I came here. He glances out on one of the little round windows. Is it morning already? Just about. What are you reading? He tries to push it out of view, but it's too late for that. He has 2 books out. The bottom volume is a book on engineering. That's no surprise, considering the interest he's taken the way things work. It's the book on top, the one his nose was in when she arrived. That catches her by surprise, almost making her laugh. Criminology for morons? Yeah, well, everyone needs a hobby. She tries to take a long look into him, but he looks away. There's something wrong, isn't there? She asks. I don't need to read Connor for morons to know that you're in some kind of trouble. He looks everywhere but into her eyes. It isn't trouble, at least not for me. Or maybe it is in some way. I don't know. Want to talk about it? That, says Connor, is the last thing I want to do. He takes a deep breath and shifts in his chair. Don't worry, everything will be fine. You don't sound too sure. He looks at Risa, then looks at the hatch, making sure they're still alone. Then he leans in close to her and says, now that the Goldens are no longer around, the Admiral's going to be looking for replacements. I want you to promise me that if he asks you to help him, you'll turn him down. The Admiral doesn't even know I exist. Why would he ask me for anything? Because he's asked me, Connor says in an intense whisper, and I think he's asked MB too. MB? All I'm saying is that I don't want you to be a target. A target for what? For whom? Shh, keep your voice down. She looks again at that book he was reading, trying to piece it all together, but there just aren't enough pieces. She gets close to him, forcing him to look at her. I want to help you, she says. I'm worried about you. Just please, let me help you. He darts his eyes back and forth, trying to find an escape from his gaze, or from her gaze, but he can't. Suddenly, he brings the small distance between them and kisses her. She did not expect it, and when he breaks off the kiss, she realizes from the look on his face that he didn't expect it either. What was that for? It takes a moment for him to get his brain functioning again. That, he says, is in case something happens and I don't see you again. Nothing. Fine, she says, and she pulls him into another kiss, this one longer than the first. Ooh la la. When she breaks it off, she says, that's in case I do see you again. He leaves, awkwardly stumbling out and nearly falling down the steel steps to the ground. In spite of all that just went on between them, Risa has to smile. It's amazing that something as simple as a kiss can overpower the worst of worries. Maybe that was his plan, a distraction. Lev's troubles appear to be of a different nature, and Risa finds herself frightened by them. He comes to the infirmary call that morning with a bad sunburn. Since he's a fast runner, he's been assigned messenger duty. Mostly it involves running back and forth between the jets carrying notes. It's one of the Admiral's rules that all messengers wear sunscreen, but it seems Lev is no longer bound by anyone's rules. They make small talk for a bit, but it's awkward, so she quickly gets down to business. Well, now that your hair is longer, at least your forehead and neck seem to have been spared. Take off your shirt. I kept my shirt on most of the time, he says. Let's have a look anyway. Reluctantly, he removes his shirt. He's burned there as well, but not as badly as on his arms and cheeks. When he catches her attention, however, is a welt on his back in the faint shape of a hand. She brushes her finger across it. Who did this to you? She asks. Nobody, he says, grabbing the shirt back from her and slipping it on. Just some guy. Is someone on your team giving you trouble? I told you, it's nothing. What are you, my mother? No, says Risa. If I were your mother, I'd be rushing you off to the nearest harvest camp. She means it as a joke, but Lev doesn't find it funny. Just give me something to put on the burns. There's a deadness to his voice that's haunting. She goes to the cabinet and finds a tube of aloe cream, but she doesn't hand it to him just yet. I miss the old Lev, she says. That makes him look at her. No offense, but you didn't even know me. Maybe not, but at least back then I wanted to. And you don't want to anymore? I don't know, says Risa. The kid I'm looking at now is a little too creepy for my taste. She can tell that gets to him. She doesn't know why it should, because he seems proud of his new creep factor. The old Lev, he says, tricked you into trusting him, then turned you into the police the first chance he got. And the new Lev wouldn't do that? He thinks about it, and then says, the new Lev has better things to do. She puts the tube of burn cream in his hand. Yeah, well, if you see the old one, the one who always thought about God and his purpose and stuff, tell him we want him back. There's an uneasy silence, and he looks down at the tube in his hand. For a moment, she thinks he might say something that brings a hint of that other kid back into the room, but all he says is, how often do I put this on? There's a work call the following day. Risa hates them because she knows there isn't going to be anything for her, but everyone must attend work call. Today, the gathering isn't run by an Unwind, but by Cleaver. Apparently, he's temporarily taken over the job, since no one's been found to fulfill Amp's duties. Risa doesn't like him. He's got an unpleasant, slimy look about him. There are only a few calls for work today. Someone wants a plumber's assistant in some godforsaken town named Beaver's Breath. There's some farm work out in California, and the third job is just plain weird. Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, Cleaver says. You'll be working on an oil pipeline until you're 18. From what I hear, it's one of the coldest, most brutal places on Earth. But hey, it's a way out, right? I need 3 volunteers. The first hand up belongs to an older kid who looks like Punishment is his middle name, like he was born for brutal work, right down to his shaved head. The second hand raised catches Risa by surprise. It's Mai. What is Mai doing volunteering for work on a pipeline? Why would she want to leave the boy she was so attached to back in the warehouse? But then, come to think of it, Risa hadn't seen that boy around the graveyard at all. While she tries to process this, a third hand goes up. It's a younger kid, a smaller kid, a kid with a bad sunburn. Lev's hand is held high and he gets chosen for the pipeline job. Risa just stands there in disbelief, and she searches for Connor in the crowd. He's seen it too. Gonna change. Okay. Everyone's gonna think I'm an asshole, but to be fair, he just started smoking cigarettes again, and I don't do cigarette smoke. So he can leave or change his clothes. And to be fair, I've been like this since the start. It's just worse now that he stopped smoking. So now I'm not used to it again anymore. But yeah, no. You guys don't think I'm mean, okay? I love my husband. Just not when he's stinky. I don't love his stinkiness. Cigarettes. Stinky. You guys get it. Alright, I'm gonna continue now. Risa just stands in disbelief. Then she searches for Connor in the crowd. He's seen it too. He looks at Risa and shrugs. Well, maybe this is just a shrug to Connor, but it's not to her. When the meeting breaks up, she makes a beeline for Lev, but he's already vanished into the mob. So the instant Risa gets back to the infirmary, she calls for a messenger, and another, sending them off with each with the redundant notes reminding kids to take their medications. Finally, after her 4th call, the messenger they send is Lev. He must see the look on her face because he just stands there at the hatch not coming in. One of the other medics is there, so Risa glares at Lev, pointing towards the back. That way. Now. I don't take orders, he says. That way, she says again, even more forcefully. Now. Apparently, he does take orders after all, because he steps in and marches toward the back of the plane. Once they reach the storage room at the back, she closes the bulkhead door behind them and lays into him. What the hell are you thinking? Her face is steel. It's the door of a safe she can't get into. His face is steel. Oh, hi. Hi, husband. I see that you're still around. Can I hydrate with coffee? Does that count? I love you. I just don't love the cigarette smell. Okay? I've never been to Alaska, he says. I might as well go now. I love you. I love you too. My bean. My favoriteest bean of all of the beans. You've barely been here a week. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? And for a job like that? I don't have to explain anything to you or to anyone else. I raised my hand, I got chosen, and that's all. Risa crosses her arms in defiance of his defiance. You don't go anywhere if I don't give you a clean bill of health. I could tell the Admiral you've got infectious hepatitis. You wouldn't. Just watch me. He storms away from her, kicking the wall in fury, then storms back. He won't believe you, and even if he does, you can't keep me sick forever. Why are you so determined to go? There are things I have to do, Lev says. I don't expect you to understand. I'm sorry I'm not who you want me to be, but I've changed. I'm not the same stupid, naive kid you guys kidnapped 2 months ago. Nothing you can do will keep me from leaving here and doing what I've got to do. Risa says nothing, but she knows he's right. She can stall him at best, but she can't stop him. So, says Lev a bit more calmly now, do I have infectious hepatitis or not? Arya is a cat, and her nose is stuffed up right now. She probably can't even smell you. She's been super lovey. I just wish she'd come in the house. I mean, now that Ullr's here, I don't know how you would do around. I don't know. I just wish she'd come in the house. She sighs. No, you don't. He turns to leave, opening the bulkhead door. He's so determined to move on, he doesn't even think to offer her a goodbye. You're wrong about one thing, she says before he's out the door. You're just as naive as you were before, and maybe twice as stupid. Then he's gone. That same afternoon, an unmarked white van comes to take him, Mai, and the Fleshhead away. Once again, Risa thinks she'll never see Lev again. Once again, she'll be wrong. Well, I mean, if she wants to, then let her come inside. I mean, the dogs can't come in from the gate anyway. Emby has no idea, and she can still get outside if she goes out the side door. Emby has no idea of all the gears turning in the graveyard, or even the one that he's one of them. His world is contained within the square panels of his comic books, and the well-defined borders of a pinball machine. Staying within those borders has been a successful defense against the injustice and cruelty of life outside of them. He does not question the oddness of the trio that just left for Alaska. It's not his business. He does not sense the tension in Connor. Connor can take care of himself, and he does not spend time wondering about Roland. He just stays out of Roland's way. But keeping his head down does not keep him in the safe zone. Emby is, in fact, the central bumper of the pinball board, and every single ball in play is about to rebound off of him. The Admiral has called for him. Emby now stands nervously at the entrance to what was once the mobile command center for the President of the United States. There are 2 other men here. They are in white shirts and dark ties. The black sedan that waits at the bottom of the stairs must be theirs. The Admiral sits at his desk. Emby tries to decide whether he should enter or turn around and run away, but the Admiral sees him, and his gaze freezes Emby's feet in place. You wanted me, sir? Yes, have a seat, Zachary. He forces his feet to move toward the chair across from the Admiral. Emby, he says. Everyone just calls me Emby. Is that your choice or theirs? Asks the Admiral. Well, theirs, mostly, but I just got used to it. Cigarettes are gross. They are. Thank you, Phasma Echo. See, Phasma Echo has sense. Wotan. Odin Woden. Never let anyone else name you, says the Admiral. He leafs through a file with Emby's picture clipped to the cover. It's a full file, and Emby can't imagine how there could be enough interesting things in his life to fill a file that thick. You may not realize this, but you're a very special boy, says the Admiral. Emby can only look down at his shoelaces, which are, as always, moments away from coming untied. Is that why I'm here, sir? Because I'm special? Yes, Zachary, and because of it, you're going to be leaving us today. Emby looks up. What? There's someone who wants to meet you, in fact. It's someone who's been looking for you for a very long time. Really? These men will take you there. Who is it? Emby has a long-standing fantasy that one of his parents is actually still alive. If not his mother, then his father. He has always dreamed that his father was actually a spy, that his death all those years ago was just the official story, and he's been off in untamed corners of the world fighting evil like a real comic book hero. It's no one you know, says the Admiral, dashing Emby's hopes. She's a good woman, though. Actually, she's my ex-wife. I don't understand. It will be clear to you soon enough, don't worry. Which to Emby is an open invitation to worry without end. It makes him start to hyperventilate, which makes his bronchial tubes begin to restrict. He starts to wheeze. The Admiral looks at him with concern. Are you alright? Asthma, Emby says between wheezes. He pulls out an inhaler from his pocket and takes a whiff. Yes, says the Admiral. My son had asthma. He responded pretty well with Zolair. He looks up at one of the men behind Emby. Please make sure you get some Zolair for that lung. Yes, Admiral Dunphy. Emby has his son's lung! Wow. Wow. It takes a moment for this to bounce around on the pegs and pins in Emby's bright mind before hitting his mental flippers. Dunphy? Your last name is Dunphy? We have no last names in the graveyard, says the Admiral. And then he stands and grabs Emby's hand, shaking it. Goodbye, Zachary. When you see my ex-wife, give her my regards. Emby can only squeak a wordless response as the men take him by the arms and lead him out and down toward the waiting sedan. Once the boy is gone, Admiral Dunphy leans back in his chair. With all the things threatening his domain, here's one thing he can be pleased with. He allows himself a brief moment of satisfaction, glancing over at the smiling picture of his son Harlan, better known as Humphrey in modern folklore. For those who loved him and know his real name, yes, the Admiral is redeeming himself and setting things right bit by bit by bit. Oh, that's so sweet. Emby's disappearance goes undiscovered for almost 2 days until someone takes a look at the pinball machine and notices that something is missing. Where's the mouth breather? People begin to ask. It's not until nightfall that people start asking seriously, and by morning it's clear that he's gone. Some people claim they saw him wandering off into the desert. Some people claim there was a mysterious car that took him away. Ralphie Sherman claims he saw Emby beamed up to the mothership to be with his own kind. Every suggestion is mulled over. Every theory is entertained. A search is mounted by Emby's team. It turns up nothing. Through all of this, the Admiral is silent. Now Emby, the kid at the bottom of the pecking order, has suddenly become everyone's best friend and has disappeared as fuel for everyone's fire. Roland uses it to further his own agenda of fear, and after all, he was the one who publicly predicted that Emby would vanish. He didn't believe it for an instant, but now that his prediction has come true, he has everyone's attention. You watch, Roland tells all those who will listen. The Admiral's going to show up one of these days with a nice thick head of Emby hair hidden beneath his hat. And any one of us could be next. He's been looking at your eyes? Has he been looking at your eyes? Has he been listening to the sound of your voice? If he wants a part of you, you'll end up just like Emby. He's so convincing, he almost believes it himself. Connor has a completely different view of the situation. He's certain that Roland did away with Emby so he could use his disappearance to gather support. For Connor, it's more proof that Roland killed the Goldens, that he'll stop at nothing to get what he wants. Nothing is as it seems. Or, things aren't always as they seem. Connor brings his suspicions to the Admiral. He listens, but still says nothing. The Admiral knows that claiming responsibility for Emby's absence would play right into the mania that Roland is creating. The Admiral could tell Connor that he was the one who sent the boy away, but that would beg questions that he has no desire to answer. He decides to let Connor think that Roland did it. It would motivate Connor even more to find that crucial link connecting Roland to the murders, because now the Admiral has come to believe in Roland's guilt as well. Forget the missing boy, he tells Connor. Concentrate on proving Roland killed the others. Someone must have helped him. Someone must know. Right now, Roland has too many supporters. We can't take him down without hard evidence. Then, somehow, I'll get you evidence, Connor tells him. I'll do it for Emby. After Connor leaves the Admiral's jet, the Admiral sits alone, pondering the ins and outs of the situation. Things in the graveyard have gotten dicey before, but dicey situations have always been the Admiral's specialty. He's sure he can play this one to a successful conclusion and get everything back under his control. As he sits there in his jet, he gets an ache in his shoulder that spreads down to his arm. No doubt it's another manifestation of his various war wounds. He calls a medic to bring him some of the aspirin. Sorry, I was like, heart attack? No, I don't know. Roland opens the... 39. Roland. Roland opens the envelope that Hayden has just handed him and reads the note inside. I know what you did. I'll make you a deal. Meet me at the FedEx jet. The note isn't signed, but it doesn't have to be. Roland knows who sent it. Connor's the only one who have nerve enough to blackmail him. The only one stupid enough. The note sets Roland's mind spinning. I know what you did. There are quite a lot of activities Connor could be talking about. He might know that Roland has been sabotaging the generators so he can blame the Admiral for outrageous living conditions, or he might know about the bottle of ipecac he stole from the infirmary while pretending to flirt with Risa. He was planning to use that stuff to spike the drinks, creating a puke fest, and then blame the Admiral for giving them all food poisoning. Yes, there are plenty of things that Connor could have found out about. Roland puts the note in his pocket, showing no emotion, and glaring at Hayden. So you're Connor's messenger boy now? Hey, says Hayden, I'm Switzerland, neutral as can be, and also good with chocolate. Get lost, Roland tells him. Already am, and Hayden strolls away. It burns Roland that he might have to bargain with Connor, but there are worse things. After all bargains and subterfuge are a way of life for him. So he heads off toward the FedEx jet, making sure he takes a knife with him in case there's no deal to be made. Ho ho ho, I'm sorry, my nose is like really itchy right now. Chapter 40, Connor. I think these chapters are going to start getting really quick right now. I'm here, Roland calls from outside the FedEx jet. What do you want? Connor remains hidden inside the hold. He knows he's only going to get one chance at this, so he's got to do it right. Come inside and we'll talk about it. No, you come out. Nice try, Connor thinks, but this is going to be on my terms. If you don't come in, I'll tell everyone what I know. I'll show everyone what I found. Silence for a moment. Then he sees Roland's silhouette as he climbs into the hold. Connor has the advantage now. His eyes have adjusted to the dim light of the hold, and Roland's have not. He leaps forward and firmly plants the muzzle of the Admiral's gun against Roland's back. Don't move. Instinctively, Roland's hands go up as if he's been in this position many times before. Is this your deal? Shut up. Connor uses one hand to frisk him, finds the concealed knife, and hurls it out of the cargo hold. Satisfied, he pushes the gun harder against Roland. Move. Where am I supposed to go? You know where to go. Crate 2933. Move. Roland begins to walk forward, squeezing between the narrow rows of crates. Connor is conscious of every movement of Roland's body, even with the gun to his back. Roland is arrogant and sure of himself. You don't want to kill me, he says. Everyone here likes me. If you do anything to me, they'll tear you apart. They reach crate 2933. Get in, Connor says. That's when Roland makes his move. He spins, knocks Connor back, and grabs for the gun. Connor expected this. He holds the gun out of reach and, using the crate behind him for leverage, places his foot firmly in Roland's gut and pushes him back. Roland falls backwards into crate 2933. The second he does, Connor lurches forward, slams the hatch, and seals it. While Roland rages inside, Connor takes aim at the crate and fires the gun once, twice, 3 times. The blast echoes, blending with the terrified screams from within the crate, and then Roland shouts, "What are you doing? Are you insane?" Connor's shots had been very precise. They were low and directed at the corner of the crate. I've given you something your victims never had, Connor tells him. I've given you air holes. Then he sits down. Now we talk. Chapter 41, Mob. Half a mile away, a search party returns from the desert. They didn't find Emby. Instead, they found 5 unmarked graves behind a distant outcropping of rocks. In a few short minutes, word spreads through the ranks like flames in a steady wind. The Goldens have been found, and apparently they weren't so golden after all. Someone suggests that the Admiral did it himself. That suggestion becomes a rumor, and the rumor quickly becomes accepted as fact. The Admiral killed his own. He's everything Roland says he is. And hey, where is Roland? He's missing too. So is Connor. What has the Admiral done to them? A mob of unwinds with 100 reasons to be angry have all simultaneously found one more, and that's all it takes to push them over the edge. The mob storms away towards the Admiral's jet, picking up more and more kids along the way. There's 3 chapters on 2 pages. Chapter 42, Risa. A few minutes earlier, Risa had responded to the Admiral's request and showed up at his jet with some aspirin. She was greeted by the Admiral, who, as she had told Connor, didn't even know her name. Now he chats with her, telling her that the experience she's getting here is better than what anyone her age gets in the outside world. She tells him of her thoughts of becoming an army medic, and he seems pleased. He complains of shoulder pain and asks her for the aspirin. She gives it to him, but just to be on the safe side, she checks his blood pressure, and he applauds her for being so thorough. There is some sort of commotion outside that makes it hard for her to focus on taking the Admiral's blood pressure. Commotion is not unusual here. whatever it is, Risa suspects it will end with bandages and ice packs for someone. Her work is never done. 43. Mob. Furious kids begin to arrive at the Admiral's jet. Get him! Get him! Pull him out! They climb the steel steps. The hatch is open, but just a crack. Risa looks out at the waves of mayhem, like a human tsunami pounding toward her. He's got a girl in there with him! The first of the kid reaches the top of the stairs and heaves the hatch open, only to be Risa and a brutal punch to the jaw. It sends him tumbling over the side and to the ground, but there's more where he came from. Don't let her close that door! The second kid is met by an aerosol burst of Bactrine right to his eyes. The pain is excruciating. He stumbles backward into the other kids coming up the stairs, and they tumble like dominoes. Risa grabs the hatch and swings it closed and seals it from the inside. Kids are on the wings now, finding every piece of loose metal and prying it up. It's amazing how much of a plane can be shredded by bare-handed fury. Break the windows! Pull them out! Kids on the ground throw rocks that hit their comrades as often as they hit the jet. On the inside, it sounds like a hailstorm. The Admiral blanches at the scene outside and windows. His heart races, his shoulder and arm ache. How did this happen? How did I let this happen? The barrage of stones batters the fuselage, but nothing breaks the armored steel. Nothing cracks the bulletproof glass of the former Air Force One. Then, someone tears out the power line connecting the jet to its generator. The lights go out. The air conditioning shuts down, and the entire jet quickly begins to bake in the broiling sun. I don't know why, but I thought it was nighttime. Never mind. Chapter 44. Connor. You murdered Amp, Jeeves, and the rest of the Goldens. You're crazy. Connor sits outside crate 2933, wiping his brow in the heat. Roland's voice comes from inside, muffled, but loud enough to hear. You got rid of them so you could take their place, Connor says. I swear, when I get out of here, you'll what? You'll kill me like you killed them? Like you killed MB? No response from Roland. I said I'd make you a deal, says Connor, and I will. If you confess, I'll make sure the Admiral spares your life. In response, Roland suggests Connor perform a physical impossibility. Confess, Roland. It's the only way I'm letting you out of there. Connor is sure that if put under enough pressure, Roland will confess to what he's done. The Admiral needs evidence. What better evidence than a full confession? I have nothing to confess to. Fine, says Connor. I can wait. I have all day. Oh my god, my nose is so itchy. I'm sorry, y'all. It's just like... It's like... inside... like a sneeze tickle. What it feels like. Things are getting juicy. Chapter 45. Mob. The fortress of the Admiral's jet is impenetrable. The temperature inside is soaring past 100. Reese is handling the heat, but the Admiral doesn't look too good. She still can't open the door because the mob is relentlessly trying to get in. Outside, whatever kids aren't swarming over the Admiral's jet are spreading out. If they can't get to the Admiral, then they'll destroy everything else. The study jets, the dormitory jets, even the recreation jet. Everything is being torn apart, and whatever can burn is set aflame. They are filled with an insatiable fury, and beneath it is a strange joy that anger can finally be released. Beneath that joy is more fury. From halfway across the graveyards, Cleaver sees the smoke rising in the distance, beckoning him. Cleaver is drawn to mayhem. He must be a witness to it. He gets into his helicopter and flies towards the angry mob. He sets down as close to the chaos as he dares to get. Have his deeds in any way led to this? He hopes so. He turns off the engine, letting the blade slow so he can hear the wonderful sounds of havoc. Then, the angry Unwinds turn towards him. It's Cleaver! He works for the Admiral! Suddenly, Cleaver is the center of attention. He can't help but feel this is a good thing. I mean, it sounds like they're about to take him out. 46. Connor. Roland is slowly breaking. He confesses to many things, petty acts of vandalism and theft, that Connor couldn't care less about. But this is going to work. It has to work. Connor has no other plans to bring him to justice. It has to work. I've done a lot of things, Roland tells him through the 3 bullet holes in the crate, but I never killed anybody. Connor just listens. He barely speaks to him anymore. Connor finds the less he speaks, the more Roland does. How do you know they're even dead? Because I buried them, me and the Admiral. Then you did it, says Roland. You did it, and you're trying to make me take the blame. Now Connor begins to see the flaw in his plan. If he lets Roland out without a confession, then he's a dead man, but he can't keep him in there forever. His options are now narrower than the spaces between the crates. Then a voice calls to him from the outside. Is anyone there? Connor? Roland? Anybody? It's Hayden. Help! Screams Roland at the top of his lung. Help! He's crazy! Come in here and let me out! But his screams don't make it out of the hold. Connor gets up and makes his way to the entrance. Hayden looks up at him. He's not his usual cool self, and there's a nasty bruise on his forehead like he was hit by something. Thank God, Connor. You've got to get back there. It's nuts. You've got to stop it. They'll listen to you. What are you talking about? The Admiral killed the Goldens, and everyone thought he killed you. The Admiral didn't kill anybody. Well, try telling them that, Connor responds. Them who? Hayden screams back. Everybody! They're tearing this place apart. Connor sees the far-off smoke, and he takes a quick glance back into the hold. Deciding that for a moment Roller can wait, he hops down to the ground and races off with Hayden. Tell me everything, from the beginning. When Connor arrives at the scene, his mind keeps trying to reject what his eyes are telling him. He stares, part of him hoping the vision will go away. It's like the aftermath of some natural disaster. Broken bits of metal, glass, and wood are everywhere. Pages torn from books fluttered past smashed electronics. Bonfires burn and kids hurl in more wreckage to feed the flames. My God! There's a group of jeering kids near the helicopter, gathering like a rugby scrum, kicking something in the center. Then Connor realizes it's not something, it's someone. He races in, pulling the kids apart. The kids who know Connor immediately back off, and the others follow suit. The man on the ground is bladdered and bloody. It's Cleaver. Cleaver deserves this. Connor kneels down and props up his head. It's okay, you're going to be okay. But even as he says it, Connor knows it's not true. He's been beaten to a pulp. Cleaver grimaces, his mouth bloody. Then Connor realizes that this isn't a grimace at all. It's a smile. Chaos, man, Cleaver says weakly. Chaos is beautiful. Beautiful. Connor doesn't know what to say to this. The man's delirious. He has to be. It's okay, Cleaver says. This is an okay way to die. Better than suffocating, right? Connor can only stare at him. What did you say? No one but Connor and Admiral knew about the suffocations. Connor, the Admiral, and the one who did it. You killed the Goldens. You and Roland. Roland? Says Cleaver. In spite of his pain, he actually seems insulted. Roland's not one of us. He doesn't even know. Cleaver catches the look on Connor's face and begins to laugh. Then the laugh becomes a rattle that resolves into a long, slow exhale. The grin never entirely leaves his face. His eyes stay open, but there's nothing in them, just like his victim, Amp. Oh crap, he's dead, isn't he? Says Hayden. They killed him! Holy crap, they killed him! Connor leaves the dead pilot in the dust and storms towards the Admiral's plane. He passes the infirmary along the way. Everything's been torn out of there as well. Risa! Where's Risa? There are still kids all over the Admiral's jet. The tires have been slashed. Wing flaps lean at jagged angles like broken feathers. The entire jet lists to one side. Stop it, screams Connor. Stop it now. What are you doing? What have you done? He reaches up to the wing, grabs a kid's ankle, and pulls him off onto the ground, but he can't do that to every single one of them. So he grabs a metal pole and smashes it on the wing over and over, the sound ringing out like a church bell until their attention turns his way. Look at you, he screams. You've destroyed everything. How could you have done this? You should all be unwound. Every single one of you. You should all be unwound. Oh! It stops everyone. The kids on the wings, the kids on the bonfires, the shock of hearing such words from one of their own snaps them back to sanity. The shock of hearing his own words and knowing that he meant them frightens Connor almost as much as the scene before him. The rolling staircase leading to the Admiral's jet has fallen on its side. Over here, says Connor, help me with this. A dozen kids, their fury spent, come running obediently. Together they right the stairs, and Connor climbs up to the hatch. He peers in the window, but Connor can't see much. The Admiral's there on the floor, but he's not moving. If the Admiral can't get to the door, they'll never be able to get in. Wait, is there someone else in there with him? Suddenly, a lever is thrown on the inside and the hatch begins to swing open. The heat hits him instantly, a blast furnace of heat, and the face of the door is so red and puffy it takes a moment for him to realize who it is. Risa? She coughs and almost collapses into his arms, but managed to keep herself up. I'm okay, she says. I'm okay, but the Admiral... Together they go in and kneel beside him. He's breathing, but it's shallow and strained. It's the heat, says Connor, and orders the kids lingering at the door to swing open every hatch. It's not just the heat, says Risa. Look at his lips. They're cyanotic, and his pressure is down to nothing. Connor just stares at her, not comprehending. He's having a heart attack. I've been giving him CPR, but I'm not a doctor. There's only so much I can do. My fault, says the Admiral. My fault. Shh, says Connor. You're going to be okay. But Connor knows, just as he knew when he said that to Cleaver, that chances are very slim. They carry the Admiral down the stairs, and as they do, the kids waiting outside back away, making room for him, as if it's already a coffin they're carrying. They set him down in the shade of the wing. The kids around them begin to murmur. He killed the Goldens, someone says. The old man deserves what he gets. Connor boils, but he's got much better at keeping his anger in check. Cleaver did it, Connor says forcefully, enough for everyone to hear. That starts a murmur through the crowd until someone says, yeah, well, what about Emby? The Admiral's hand flutters up. My son. Emby's his son? Says one of the kids, and the rumors begin to spread through the crowd. Whatever the Admiral meant, it's now lost in the incoherence as he slips in and out of consciousness. If we don't get him to a hospital, he'll die, says Risa, giving him chest compressions once more. Connor looks around, but the closest thing to a car in the graveyard is a golf cart. There's the helicopter, says Hayden, but considering the fact that the pilot's dead, I think we're screwed. Risa looks at Connor. He doesn't need to read Risa for morons to know what she's thinking. The pilot is dead, but Cleaver was training another one. I know what to do, says Connor. I'll take care of it. Connor stands up and looks around him. The smoke-stained faces, the smoldering bonfires. After today, nothing will be the same. Hayden, he says, you're in charge. Get everything under control. You're kidding me, right? Connor leads Hayden to grapple with authority and finds 3 of the largest kids in the field of vision. You, and you, Connor says. I need you to come with me to the FedEx jet. The 3 kids step forward, and Connor leads the way to crate 2399 and Roland. This, Connor knows, will not be an easy conversation. So much going on. 47. And it's just crazy to me because these kids wreaked havoc just to wreak havoc. I mean, I'm pretty sure that they're clappers, which they still haven't really explained what clappers are. They are like little terrorists trying to wreak havoc on, the Unwind world. So I'm assuming that's what they're doing, is they're going off to make themselves bombs. I don't know. We'll find out next book, I'm sure. 47. First-year residents. In her 6th month working in the emergency room, the young doctor has seen enough strange things to fill her own medical school textbook. But this is the first time someone has crash-landed a helicopter in the hospital parking lot. She races out with a team of nurses, orderlies, and other doctors. It's a small private craft, 4-seater maybe. It's in one piece, and its blades are still spinning. It's missed hitting a parked car by half a yard. Someone's losing their flying license. 2 kids get out, carrying an older man in bad shape. They've already have a gurney rolled out to meet them. We have a rooftop helipad, He didn't think he'd be able to land on it, says the girl. When the doctor looks at the pilot still sitting behind the controls, she realizes that losing his license is not an issue. The kid at the controls can't be any older than 17. She hurries to the old man. A stethoscope brings barely a sound from his chest cavity. Turning to the medical staff around her, she says stabilize him and prep him for transplant. Then she turns back to the kids. You're lucky you landed at a hospital with a heart bank, or we'd end up having to medevac him across town. Then the man's hand rises from the gurney. He grabs her sleeve, tugging with more strength than a man in his condition should have. No transplant, he says. No, don't do this to me, thinks the doctor. The orderlies hesitate. Sir, it's a routine operation. He doesn't want a transplant, says the boy. You brought him in from God knows where with an underage pilot to save his life and he won't let us do it? We have an entire tissue locker full of healthy young hearts. No transplant, says the man. It's, against his religion, says the girl. Tell you what, says the boy, why don't you do whatever they did before you had a tissue locker full of healthy young hearts? The doctor sighs. At least she's still close enough to medical school to remember what that is. It drastically lowers his chances of survival. You know that, don't you? He knows. She gives the man a moment more to change his mind, then gives up. The orderlies and the other staff rush the man back towards the ER, and the two kids follow. Once they're gone, she takes a moment to catch her breath. Someone grabs her arm, and she turns to see the young pilot, who had been silent through all of it. The look on his face is pleading, yet determined. She thinks she knows what it's about. She glances at the helicopter and then at the kid. Take it up with the FAA, she says. If he lives, I'm sure you'll be off the hook. They might even call you a hero. I need you to call the juvie cops, he says, his grip getting a little stronger. Excuse me? Those two are runaway unwinds. As soon as that old man is admitted, they'll try to sneak away. Don't let them. Call the juvie cops now. She pulls out of his grip. All right, fine. I'll see what I can do. And when they come, he says, make sure they talk to me first. She turns from him and heads back into the hospital, pulling out her cell phone on the way. If he wants the juvie cops, fine. He'll get them. The sooner they come, the sooner this whole thing can fall into the category of not my problem. Chapter 48. Risa. Juvie cops always look the same. They look tired. They look angry. They look a lot like the unwinds they capture. The cop who now guards Risa and Connor is no exception. He sits blocking the door of the doctor's office. They're being held in with 2 more guards on the other side of the door, just in case. He's content to stay silent, while another cop questions Roland in an adjacent room. Risa doesn't even want to guess at the topic of conversation in there. The man we brought in, Risa says. How is he? Don't know, says the cop. You know hospitals. They only tell you those things to next of kin, and I guess that's not you. Risa won't dignify that with a response. She hates this juvie cop instinctively, just because of who he is and what he represents. Nice socks, Connor says. The cop does not glance down at his socks. No show of weakness here. Nice ears, he says to Connor. Mind if I try them on sometime? The way Risa sees it, there are 2 types of people who become juvie cops. Type 1, bullies who want to spend their lives reliving their glory days of high school bullying. Type 2, the former victims of Type 1, who see every unwind as the kid who tormented them all those years ago. Type 2s are endlessly shoveling vengeance into a pit that will never be full. Amazing that the bullies and victims can now work together to bring misery to others. How does it feel to do what you do? She asks him, sending kids to a place that ends their lives. Obviously, he's heard all this before. How does it feel to live a life no one else feels is worth living? It's a harsh blow designed to get her to shut up. It works. I feel her life is worth living, says Connor, and he takes her hand. Anyone feel that way about you? It gets to the man, although he tries not to show it. You both had more than 15 years to prove yourselves and you didn't. Don't blame the world for your own lousy choices. You know, that's kind of funny to me because it's like, to whose, like, judgment? Because it obviously depends on the parents. Because there will probably be parents who would get their kids unwound for really dumbass, stupid things. And, like, that has nothing to do with you or your choices. That has to do with your caretakers who obviously don't understand how kids are. Like, people just shouldn't have kids if they don't understand how kids function. It's just crazy. Risa can sense Connor's rage, and she squeezes his hand until she hears him take a deep breath and release it, keeping his anger under control. Doesn't it ever occur to you that unwinds that you might be better off, happier even, in a divided state? Is that how you rationalize it, says Risa, making yourself believe we'll be happier? Hey, if that's the case, says Connor, maybe everyone should get unwound. Why don't you go first? The cop glares at Connor, then takes a quick glance down at his socks. Connor snickers. Risa closes her eyes for a moment, trying to see some ray of light in this situation, but she can't. She had known getting caught was a possibility when they came here. She knew that being out in the world was a risk. What surprised her was how quickly the juvie cops had descended on them. Even with their unorthodox entrance, they should have had enough time to slip away in the confusion. Whether the Admiral lives or dies, it won't change things for her or for Connor now. They are going to be unwound. All her hopes of a future have been torn away from her again, and having those hopes, even briefly, makes this far more painful than not having had them at all. 49. Roland. The juvie cop questioning Roland has eyes that don't exactly match and a sour smell. Like his deodorant soap hadn't quite worked. Like his partner in the other room, this man is not easily impressed, and Roland, unlike Connor, doesn't have the wits to rattle him. That's all right, though, because rattling him is not what Roland has in mind. Roland's plan began to take shape shortly after Connor released him from the crate. He could have torn Connor limb from limb at that time, but Connor had 3 kids equal in size and strength to Roland to back him up. They were kids who should have been on Roland's side. Should have been. It was his first indication that everything had drastically changed. Connor told him about the riot and about Cleaver. He offered a lame apology for accusing him of killing the Goldens, an apology that Roland refused to accept. Had Roland been at the riot, it would have been organized and successful. If he had been there, it would have been a revolt, not a riot. By locking Roland away, Connor had robbed him of a chance to lead. When they had arrived back at the scene of the riot, all focus was on Connor. All questions were directed to him. He was telling everyone what to do, and they were all listening. Even Roland's closest friends cast their eyes down when they saw him. He instinctively knew that all his support was gone. His absence from the disaster had made him an outsider, and he would never regain what he had lost here, which meant it was time to devise a new plan of action. Roland agreed to fly the helicopter to save the Admiral's life, not because he had any desire to see the man live, but because taking that flight provided a new door of opportunity. "I'm curious," says the sour-smelling cop. "Why would you turn in the other 2 kids when it means turning yourself in as well?" "There is a reward, $1,500 for turning in a runaway Unwind, right?" He smirks. "Well, that's $1,500 if you're including yourself." Roland looks the juvie cop in the eye, no shame, no fear, and boldly presents his offer. "What if I told you I know where there are more than 400 AWOL Unwinds? What if I helped you take down a whole smuggling operation? What would that be worth?" The cop seems to freeze in place, and he regards Roland closely. "All right," he says, "you have my attention." You know what? Fuck Roland. Oh! Who does that? Oh. 50. Connor. He's lasted longer than anyone expected. This is the consolation Connor must hold on to as the cop and 2 armed guards escort him and Risa into the room where Roland is being interrogated. By the smug look on Roland's face, however, Connor suspects it wasn't so much an interrogation as a negotiation. "Please sit down," says the cop, sitting on the edge of a desk near Roland. Roland won't look at them. He won't even acknowledge their presence in the room. He just leans back in his chair. He folds his arm if the handcuffs allowed it. The cop wastes no time in getting right to business. "Your friend here has quite a lot to say, and offered us a very interesting deal. His freedom in exchange for 400 Unwinds. He's volunteered to tell us exactly where they are." Connor knew Roland would give him and Risa up, but giving up all of them? That's a new low for Roland. He still won't look at them, but his smug impression seems to have grown a little harder. 400, huh?" says the second cop. "He's lying," says Risa, her voice remarkably convincing. "He's trying to trick you. It's just the 3 of us." "Actually," says the cop on the desk, "he's telling the truth. Although we're surprised the number's at 400, we thought there'd be at least 600 by now, but I guess they keep on turning 18. Roland regards him, uncertain. "What?" "Sorry to tell you this, but we know all about the Admiral in the graveyard," the cop says. "We've known about it for more than a year." The second cop chuckles, amused by the dumbfounded look on Roland's face. But why don't we round them up?" says the cop, anticipating Roland's question. "Look at it this way. The Admiral, he's like the neighborhood stray cat that nobody likes, but no one wants to get rid of because he takes care of the rats. See? Runaway on the streets, that's a problem for us. But the Admiral gets them off the street and keeps them in that little desert ghetto of his. He doesn't know it, but he's doing us a favor. No more rats." "Of course," says the second cop. "If the old man dies, we may have to go in there and clean the place out after all." "No," says Risa. "Someone else can take over." The second cop shrugs as if he's nothing to them. "Better be a good mouser." While Roland can only stare incredulously at his plan. As his plan crumbles, Connor feels relief and maybe even a bit of hope. So, then you'll let us go back? The cop at the desk picks up a file. I'm afraid I can't do that. It's one thing to look the other way, but quite another to release a criminal. Then he begins to read. Connor Lassiter, scheduled to be unwound the 21st of November until you went AWOL. You caused an accident that killed a brush driver, left dozens of others injured, and shut down an interstate highway for hours. Then, on top of it, you took a hostage and shot a juvie cop with his own tranq gun. Roland looks at the cop in awe. He's the Akron AWOL? Connor glances at Risa, then back at the cop. Fine, I admit it, but she had nothing to do with it. Let her go. The cop shakes his head, scanning the file. Witnesses say she was an accomplice. I'm afraid there's only one place she's going. Same place as you, the nearest harvest camp. But what about me? Asks Roland. I had nothing to do with any of that. The cop closes the file. Ever hear of guilt by association? He asks Roland. You should be more careful with the company you keep. Then he signals for the guards to take all three of them away. Part 6, Unwound. All right. For your case and for your ease and peace of mind, there are a variety of harvest camps to choose from. Each facility is privately owned, state licensed, and federally funded by your tax dollars. Regardless of the site you choose, you can feel confident that your unwind will receive the finest possible care from our board-certified staff as they make their transition to a divided state. Excerpt from the Parents of Unwinding Handbook. Hi.
Can I hug you?
Not right now, bub.
Okay, I love you.
I love you too. Let's see. I'll read a few more chapters. We're almost to the halfway point. We only have, 335. That's like 70 pages. I think we've read 30, so no, we read 40? Okay, so we'll read a couple more chapters and then we'll move on to something else. On the 51, Camp. On the existence of a soul, whether unwound or unborn, people are likely to debate for hours on end, but no one questions whether an unwinding facility has a soul. It does not. Perhaps that's why those who build these massive medical factories try so hard to make them kid-conscious and user-friendly in a number of ways. First of all, they are no longer called unwinding facilities, as they were when they were first conceived. They are now called harvest camps. Secondly, every single one of them is locked in a spectacularly scenic location, perhaps to remind its guests of the big picture and the reassuring majesty of a larger plan. Third, the grounds are as well maintained as a resort, filled with bright pastel colors and as little red as possible, since red is psychologically associated with anger, aggression, and not coincidentally, blood. Happy Jack Harvest Camp in beautiful Happy Jack, Arizona, is the perfect model of what a harvest camp should be. Nestled on a pine-covered ridge in northern Arizona, the sedating forest views give way to the breathtaking red mountains of Sedona to the west. No doubt it was the view that made happy men of the 20th century lumberjacks who founded the town, hence the name. The boys' dormitory is painted light blue with green accent. The girls' is lavender with pink. The staff have uniforms that consist of comfortable shorts and Hawaiian shirts, except for the surgeons in their medical unit. Their scrubs are sunshine yellow. There's a barbed wire fence, but it's hidden behind a towering hibiscus hedge. And although the unwinds in residence see the crowded bushes arriving at the front gate each day, buses, not bushes, they are spared the sight of departing trucks. Those leave the back way. The average stay for an unwind is 3 weeks, although it varies depending on blood type and supply and demand. Much like life in the outside world, no one knows when it's their time. Occasionally, in spite of the professional and positive attitude of the staff, outbursts do occur. This week's rebellion is the form of graffiti on the side of a medical clinic that reads, "You're not fooling anyone." On the 4th of February, 3 kids arrived by police escort, 6 days before my birthday. 2 are brought unceremoniously into the welcome center, just like any other arriving unwinds. The third is singled out to take the longer route that passes the dormitories, the sports field, and all the various places where unwinds are gathered. Hobbled by leg shackles, constricted by handcuffs, Connor's strides are short, his posture hunched. Armed juvie cops are on either side, in front of him and behind him. All things at Happy Jack are serene and gracious, but this moment is the exception to the rule. Once in a while, a particularly troublesome unwind is singled out and publicly humbled for all to see before being set loose into the general population. Invariably, that unwind will try to...
I'm gonna go take a walk.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you too. I lost my spot. All things at Happy Jack are serene and gracious, but this moment is the exception to the rule. Once in a while, a particularly troublesome unwind is singled out and publicly humbled for all to see before being set loose into the general population. Invariably, that unwind will try to rebel, and invariably that unwind will be taken to the clinic and unwound within just a few days of his or her arrival. It stands as an unspoken warning to every unwind there. You will get with the program, or your stay here will be very, very short. The lesson is always learned. However, this time, what the Happy Jack staff doesn't know is that Connor Lassender's reputation has preceded him. The staff's own announcement that they've taken down the Acorn AWOL does not deflate the spirits of the unwinds. Instead, it takes a boy who was only a rumor and turns him into a legend. 52. Risa. Before we begin our session, I feel it's important to remind you that although you've developed a friendship with the so-called Acorn AWOL, it's in your best interest to dissociate yourself from him. The first thing they did was to separate the three of them. Divide and conquer, isn't that the term? Risa has no problem being separated from Roland, but seeing what they did to Connor makes her long to see him even more. Physically, he was not harmed in any way. It would not do to damage the merchandise. Psychologically, however, that's a different story. You'd think they wouldn't want to damage his brain either, because his brain also, you think, would need to be mentally well. Like, what if these, like, oh, okay, I'm assuming a lot of kids have mental issues, like the one, Tyler, the brain bit that Sci-Fi got. He got unwound for being a klepto, and now Sci-Fi has to deal with being a klepto. So it's just funny to me that they have these kids unwound for being problematic, but then they're giving people problematic body parts if these body parts are gonna have some, like, conscious of their own because these unwinds think they're still alive. These bad traits are gonna be passed on to these people who didn't ask for it. So it's just, it's funny. Like, instead of curing the, fixing the kid by giving him therapy, they're just gonna pass the problem along to somebody else who needed a transplant. It's weird. They paraded him through the grounds for nearly 20 minutes, and they took off his shackles and just left him there by the flagpole. No trip to the welcome center, no orientation, nothing. He was left to figure everything out for himself. Risa knew the point wasn't to challenge him or even to punish him. It was to give him every opportunity to do the wrong thing. That way they could justify any punishment they gave. It had worried Risa, but only for a moment, because she knows Connor all too well. He will only do the wrong thing when it's the right thing to do. It looks like you did very well in the aptitude test, Risa. Above average, actually. Good for you. After being there for half a day, Risa is still shocked by the general appearance of Happy Jack Harvest Camp. In her mind's eye, she always pictured harvest camps as human cattle stockades, dead-eyed crowds of malnourished kids in small gray cells, a nightmare of dehumanization. Yet somehow this picturesque nightmare is worse. Just as the airplane graveyard was heaven disguised as hell, harvest camp is hell masqueraded as heaven. You seem to be in good physical condition. You've been getting a lot of exercise, yes? Running, perhaps? Exercise seems to be a principal component of the unwind's day. At first she assumed the various activities were designed to keep the unwinds occupied until their numbers came up. Then, as she passed a basketball game on the way to the welcome center, she noticed a totem pole by the court. In the eyes of each of the 5 totems were cameras. 10 players, 10 cameras. It meant that someone somewhere was studying each of the unwinds in that game, taking notes on hand-eye coordination, gauging the strengths of various muscle groups. Risa had quickly realized that the basketball game wasn't to keep the unwinds entertained, but to help put a cash value on their parts. Over the next few weeks, you'll be involving in a program of diverse activities. Risa, dear, are you listening? Is any of this going over your head? Would you like me to slow down? The harvest camp counselor who interviews her seems to be assumed that, in spite of aptitude scores, every unwind must be an imbecile. The woman wears a floral print blouse with lots of leaves and pink flowers. Risa would like to attack her with a weed whacker. Do you have any questions or concerns, dear? If you do, there's no better time to ask. What happens to the bad parts? The question seems to throw the woman off stride. Excuse me? You know, the bad parts. What do you do with the club feet and the deaf ears? Do those get used in transplants? You don't have either one of those, do you? No, but I do have an appendix. What happens to that? Well, says the counselor with near infinite patience, a deaf ear is better than no ear at all, and sometimes it's all people can afford. And as for your appendix, nobody really needs that anyway. Then aren't you breaking the law? Doesn't the law specifically say you have to keep 100% of the unwind alive? The smile has begun to fade from the counselor's face. Well, actually, it's 99.44%, which takes into account things like the appendix. I see. Our next bit of business is your predadmission questionnaire. Due to your unorthodox arrival, you never had the opportunity to fill one out. She flips through the pages of the questionnaire. Most of these questions don't matter at this point, but if you have any special skills you'd like to let us know about, things that could be of use to the community during your stay here. Risa wishes she could get up and leave. Even now, at the end of her life, she still has to face that inevitable question. What good are you? I have some medical experience, Risa tells her flatly. First aid, CPR. The woman smiles apologetically. Well, if there's one thing we have too many of here, it's medical staff. If the woman says, well, one more time, Risa may just drop her down a nice deep one. Like a deep kick? What? Anything else? I helped in the infant nursery back at State Ho. Again, that slim smile. Sorry, no babies here. Is that all? Risa sighs. I also studied classical piano. The woman's eyebrows raise about an inch. Really? You play piano? Well, well, well. 53. Connor. Connor wants to fight. He wants to mistreat the staff and disobey every rule because he knows if he does, he will get this over with faster. But he won't give in to the urge for two reasons. One, it's exactly what they want him to do. And two, Risa. He knows how it will devastate her to see him led to the chop shop. That's what the kids call it, the chop shop. Although they never say it in front of the staff. Connor is a celebrity in his dormitory. He finds it absurd and surreal that the kids have seen him as some sort of symbol when all he did was survive. Can't be all true, right? The kid who sleeps in the bed next to him asks his first night. I mean, you didn't really take out an entire squad of juvie cops with their own tranq guns. No, it's not true, Connor tells him. But denying it just makes the kid believe it even more. They didn't really shut down the entire freeway looking for you, another kid says. It was just one freeway, and they didn't shut it down. I did. Sort of. So then it is true. It's no use. No amount of downplaying the story can convince the others that the Akron AWOL is not some larger-than-life action figure. And then there's Roland, who, as much as he despises Connor, is now riding Connor's fame wave for all it's worth. Although Roland's in another unit, wild stories are already getting back to Connor about how he and Roland stole a helicopter and liberated 100 unwinds from being held in a Tuscan hospital. Connor considers telling them that all Roland did was turn them in, but decides life is literally too short to start things up with Roland again. There's one kid Connor speaks to who actually listens and can tell the truth from the fabrications. His name is Dalton. He's 17, but short and stocky, with hair that has a mind of its own. Connor tells him exactly what happened on that day he went AWOL. It's a relief to have someone believe the truth. Dalton, however, has his own perspective on it. Even if all that's happened, Dalton says, it's still pretty impressive. It's what the rest of us wish we could have done. Connor has to admit that he's right. You're like king of the unwinds here, Dalton tells him, but guys like you get unwound real quick, so watch yourself. Then Dalton takes a long look at him. You scared? He asks. Connor wishes he could tell them different, but he won't. He won't lie. Yeah. He seems almost relieved that Connor's scared too. In a group, they tell us that fear will pass and we'll get to a place of acceptance. I've been here almost 6 months, and I'm just as scared as the day I got here. 6 months? I thought everyone goes down in just a few weeks. Dalton leans in close and whispers as if it's dangerous information. Not if you're in the band. A band? The thought of there being music at a place where lives are silenced doesn't sit well with Connor. They set us up on the roof of the chop shop and have us play while they're bringing kids in, Dalton says. When we play everything, classics, pop, old world rock, I'm the best bass player this place has ever seen. And then he grins. Your player, you should come listen to us tomorrow. We just got a new keyboard player. She's hot. Ha, Arisa. Volleyball in the morning, Connor's first official activity. Several staffers in their rainbow flowered shirts stand on the sidelines with clipboards because apparently the volleyball court isn't equipped with 12 individual cameras. From behind them, on the roof of the chop shop, music plays, Dalton's band. It's their soundtrack for the morning. The opposing team completely deflates when they see Connor, as if his mere presence will ensure their loss. Never mind that Connor stinks at volleyball. To them, the Akron AWOL is a star in every sport. Roland's on the opposing team as well. He doesn't wilt like the others. He just glares, holding the volleyball, ready to serve it down Connor's throat. The game begins. The intensity of play can only be matched by an undercurrent of fear that runs beneath every tap of the ball. Both teams play as if the losers will be immediately unwound. Dalton had told Connor that it doesn't work that way, but losing can't help either. It reminds Connor of the Mayan games of Pocatello, something he learned about in his history class. The game was a lot like basketball, except that the losers were sacrificed to the Mayan gods. At the time, Connor thought it was cool. Roland spikes the ball and it hits one of the staffers in the face. Roland grins before he apologizes and the man glares at him, making a note on his clipboard. Connor wonders if it will cost Roland a few days. Then, suddenly, the game pauses, because everyone's attention begins to shift to a group of kids in white passing the far side of the court. Those are tides, a kid tells Connor. You know what those are, right? Connor nods. I know. Look at them. They think they're so much better than everyone else. Connor has already heard how tides are treated differently than the regular population. Tides and terribles. That's how the staff refers to the two kinds of unwinds. Tides don't participate in the same activities as the terribles. They don't wear the same blue and pink uniforms the terribles wear. Their white silk outfits are so bright in the Arizona sun you have to squint your eyes when you look at them. Like they were adolescent versions of God himself, although to Connor they look more like a little squad of aliens. The terribles hate the tides the way peasants despise royalty. Connor might have once felt the same way, but having known one, he feels much more sorry for them than anything else. I heard they know the exact date and time of their unwinding, one kid says. I hear they actually make their own appointment, says another. The ref blows his whistle. All right, back to the game. Then turn away from the bright white uniforms of their chosen few and add one more layer of frustration to the match. From a moment, as the tide disappears over a hillside, Connor thinks that he recognizes a face among them, but he knows it's just his imagination. 54. Lev. What? Lev got at the camp? It's not Connor's imagination. Lev Jebediah Calder is one of the very special guests of Happy Jack Harvest Camp. He's wearing his tithing whites once more, and he does not see Connor on the volleyball court because the Tides are strictly instructed not to look at the terribles. Why should they? They have been told from birth that they are a different caste and have a higher calling. Lev may have had the remnants of a sunburn, but his hair is cut short and neat, just as it used to be, and his manner is sensitive and mild, at least on the outside. He has an appointment for unwinding in 13 days. Ugh. I want to keep reading, but I don't want to read the rest of this. But I think we're going to end it here, because we only have this much left. And we read about half. 227 to 274. 274 to 335. So there's 60 pages left. I think we're going to end it there. If you are watching from YouTube, we got one more session till we're done with this book. So check us out Tuesday Night Book Club, 8 Pacific Standard Time. Check it out. It's about to get really juicy. Because I remember how this book ends, and oh my god, the chaos that is about to ensue in these last 60 pages. Fucking crazy.